Welcome to a very special Sci-Fi Center Presents that's actually done live as opposed to our pre-recorded nonsense. Today is July 1st. Happy first day of July, halfway to Christmas. And today we're going to be talking about a subject, and I always say that we're always talking about things that are near and dear to my heart. Today we're talking about something that is nearest and dearest to my heart. It is what I consider to be the greatest science fiction motion picture achievement of all time, along with its sequel, 2049, and that is Blade Runner. Last Saturday, June 25th, was the 40th anniversary of the release of Blade Runner. To give you some context, there was a whole slew of movies that were released in. Reagan was president. I was 7 going on 8, and I had seen it in theaters. And that was, I think, my 3rd or 4th Harrison Ford movie, if I can be correct. We're going to have a casual conversation, not really anything structured. I got some bullet points that we're going to hit, and then we're going to bounce things off of people who may be in the chat and some of those who may pop in later on. Disclaimer, as with any Sci-Fi Center show that we do, whether it be the Sci-Fi Center or usually presents or live, I am in the middle of the Sci-Fi Center itself, which is a retail location in the middle of Vegas on a Friday holiday weekend. I am open. So if you see anybody coming in, it's just a fellow geek that's just like you, except they're on the other side of the camera. I might even have them pop in and say hi and ask their opinion, depending on how things go. Also, we got packages coming in all throughout the day. So as one of the consequences of being a retail location and doing a show like this, I want to bring in our first guest. He is someone you've seen on Dave the Film Junkies Vodka stream. I've been watching his opinion for a very long time now. Wealth of knowledge, and for every opinion he has, I guarantee you he has either physical media, a book, or a toy to go along with it. And here is Scott McClellan. How you doing, Scott?
I'm sorry, you said I had to have a toy, and it's like, yes, I have toys. Do you want toys? I got toys.
I have that entire set.
Do you have the Chase?
Yes, I have the 2049 set with the Sapper Morton Chase figure. I got them when we did the promo for the movie, and you had to send away. We had to send away for the set, and then you had to send away, do an extra your ticket, your Fandango ticket to get the Chase. And it was Sapper Morton, who to me is the most pivotal character in 2049. But we'll get to him. I'm going to bring on. This may be a mistake, but I'm going to go ahead and bring on Thade. Did you even see Blade Runner? Is he there?
He's
probably
waiting.
Mute. Yeah, he said he was waiting. All right, I'll bring him in when he's got his sound down. But let's go ahead and 1982. You weren't born.
No, I was. I was 3 months old, but I was born.
Okay, you were just out of the chute. I was 7 going on 8. My birthday's in September. So I was 7 years old still. My dad took me to see Blade Runner because at that point he had seen Star Wars in the theater. He had seen Raiders. I mean, he was a big Harrison Ford fan. So anything Harrison Ford did, we were going to, whether we wanted to or not. We were going to see. I went to see Witness. I'm glad I did. Anything Harrison Ford with when the old man wanted to go to see the movies. If that was one of the decisions, that's what we saw. It didn't matter what else was on. He just was Han Solo. I mean, and that was at a time when Harrison Ford was just putting out a lot of work. And this is a guy who'd been acting for quite a while. I mean, I didn't even know about some of the movies he'd been in, as a 7-8-year-old American. I mean, all these things that he'd already worked with Lucas on. So 1982, 40 years ago, just to give you guys a context of Blade Runner was released a month. Can you hear me, Thade?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. All right, so just to give you guys a context of the maelstrom that Blade Runner was released in, and this really isn't fair.
Okay.
All right, so let me show you. All right, so take a look at this. All right, now you're going to see some hits here, but you're also going to see some not so hits. Number 1 on that list was another, what was considered a box office bomb, which is now a cult classic. Now, I can't imagine The Thing not doing well in the box office, but It didn't, if you can believe that or not. And then right behind it is the film in question, or one of the films in question, because we're talking about the overall Blade Runner legacy, Blade Runner. But then you start to realize what kind of competition that this movie was up against. There's E.T., Fast Times at Ridgemont High, First Blood. I mean, we got introduced to Rambo that very same year. Poltergeist, one of the all-time great horror movies ever. Conan the Barbarian. I mean, I cannot believe, Annie, I probably skipped on. Arbson and Gentlemen, Louis Gossett Jr.'s Academy Award performance, an all-time great film. Sophie's Choice, another Meryl Streep movie. Grease 2, I skipped. Tron. I mean, Tron is iconic. 48 Hours. Rocky 3 was released, and that introduced me to Hulk Hogan. One of the greatest science fiction movies ever made, one of the greatest sequels ever made, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Gandhi, Ben Kingsley, Academy Award winner there. Creepshow, a very underrated horror movie, in my opinion. Tootsie, The World According to Garp, King of Comedy. That's a huge one. That's a very influential movie. Beastmaster bombed because it kind of got released in the same year Conan did. Summer Lovers Diner, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D that I did see in the theater. But Pink Floyd's The Wall. These are this was the kind of year that was. So I think people can be kind of forgiven for losing such an iconic movie in the shuffle. And even as a almost 8-year-old, I did not understand what I was seeing for the first time. And it took me years to understand it.
Well, this movie was definitely one of those movies because my first experience seeing Blade Runner was buying I'm going to use air quotes here, director's cut, not really the director's cut, but the director's cut in a Walmart, when I was probably late middle school, early high school, and watching that version. It wasn't until the 25th anniversary that I saw the original theatrical cut. So watching the director's cut was one of those experiences. I think it was the first time a film taught me to watch it over and over and over again, understanding that every time I rewatched it, I would understand it better. And so it's not a movie that you're going to watch your first time, process everything that's in the film and then move on with your life. It is a film that demands to be revisited. And some moviegoers don't like that kind of experience, and others thrive on it. So, I mean, and then, like I said, then there's also the difference between your experience of seeing the original theatrical version and then any of the subsequent versions that have been released over the last 40 years.
And I've seen every version. There's a total of, I think, 7 versions. And we'll go through that down the road. Of my favorite version, obviously, is the international cut. The international cut blends everything that was supposed to be in the movie, and over the course of time, that was added in the movie, including the context of the unicorn scene, where, in my opinion, proves Deckard to replicant. But that's one of the things I'll get to in a second here. A lot of people don't know that this movie was based on Philip K. Dick's book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which had a drastically different ending.
It's a drastically different story, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
It is loosely inspired by this, but when you read the novel, especially the ending, spoiler alert, it's not a happy one for Deckard. You see the threads of where Blade Runner can go, but for somebody who watched Blade Runner about 1 million times before I even picked up this book, I never connected with the book as much as I did the movie as far as the inspiration goes. How about you?
For me, when I read the book in college, and it was just a completely different experience. What I loved about reading the book, though, is that because, like a lot of Ridley Scott films, the movie doesn't bother to explain things to you. It doesn't bother to it's like, we're going to give you the context. We're going to give you the clues. We're going to assume that you're smart enough to pick up what we're laying down. What I loved about reading the novel was that while it is a drastically different storytelling experience from the movie, and I do prefer the movie, the book gave me context to the world that once you know to look for it, the clues are there in the film. But like the idea about why is the world the way that it was? Why these casual mentions about, oh no, this is a synthetic animal. We don't have enough money to have real animals. And then also just the whole explanation of what the Voight comp is. Like the book goes into so much more detail about all of that when I read it, it was just another reason to go back and watch the movie again, going, oh, and just kind of having one of those light bulb moments.
All right, I'm going to add in, there's a fan that was part of one of our meetup groups, and I wanted to bring in a perspective of somebody outside the geeky spirit that I'm using.
First of all, William,
you back in?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I was having some internet issues. Yeah, I was having some internet issues.
Yeah, me too. Especially I was watching Stranger Things last night. Damn thing kept crashing. But that's a totally different universe right now. I'm going to add Joe Quixotic on. He's one of our meetup members. And like I said, I want to get a perspective of outside the box. How you doing, Joe?
Hello. I'm doing very well.
Hey, go ahead.
My name's actually Dan, but this is what I go on YouTube. But anyway, my background with this movie is I saw it initially as a teenager. And I've seen it many times since then. I have a couple of the DVD versions, and I love the movie. I've gone to a few courses at UCLA School of Film and Television, so I have a little bit of a background there. But I love the movie. I would take a little bit of an issue of greatest sci-fi ever because I'm also a big fan of Brazil. But it's up there. It's up there. So
you're flirting with extinction, Joe. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, it's all subjective. Brazil is its own topic. Brazil is great. That's another movie.
Yep.
I think 1985, star-studded movie. Just these movies came out, and it's just like I feel bad because careers are altered by the way these movies did in the box office. But when you look at them now, you're like, how did you knuckleheads not grasp it back then? You know what I'm saying?
Well, William, there was a period from about 82 to about 86 where there was just a golden age of movies there in the 80s.
Yeah, not all of them made money. That's the thing. That's the killer thing about it.
Yeah.
Some of them were just there, and I'm like, wow. I mean, Blade Runner changed the way I look at not just science fiction, but everything around me. I grew up in LA. I mean, I saw the Bradbury building that's used in this movie. Wherever I go, I mean, I've been to Tokyo, all these other places where I can see Blade Runner everywhere I look. Now, we don't have the flying cars, and we weren't as run down as they were, but I can see it. I mean, when it's raining, when it's foggy, it's not a moment that this movie's visions don't come to mind. And there's no other movie, science fiction or otherwise, that happens to me wherever I go. Not The Godfather, not Star Wars, not even Top Gun when I grew up on an Air Force base or right in San Bernardino County, right outside LA. I mean, it's always been Blade Runner. It's always been the baseline for me. Even so far as I went back to Metropolis, Fritz Lang's Metropolis, to look at what had to have influenced me to that point. I obviously he's passed away, but I'm pretty sure there's plenty of interviews where there's no way you could look at Metropolis and not see Sid Mead sitting in front of a projector saying, wow,
we had a lot of cyber, the whole term cyberpunk came from this kind of genre of movie. This was a very influential movie in the cyberpunk genre. So
yeah, the term pretty much was revolutionized, was it?
Yeah.
I think cyberpunk was a novel that happened earlier, but I could be wrong.
Well, a lot of the elements of cyberpunk are in Blade Runner, though.
Yeah, Cyberpunk was a book that was released earlier, but the visual aspects, remember, we weren't reading books in the 80s. It's like we were now. It's different now.
Well, I was reading books in the 80s, but I'm a nerd, so.
You're probably reading them from the stone tablets now. I'm just kidding. But no.
It's possible.
to see it brought to life, though, I think Blade Runner, if I'm not correct, I don't recall any movie being able to bring it that aspect to life the way it did. And like I said, 1982 is a different world than we are now. Where we're at now, we expect technology. We expect the metropolises. We expect all this. We've grown up in it. Video games to us, Atari for us in 1982 was still revolutionary. Now it's Atari. If you mention Atari, you're a dinosaur. I mean, but then it was what we thought, and that's an interesting aspect about Blade Runner. And even now, when you watch Blade Runner 2049, they make sure that there's an Atari logo there. The trajectory that Blade Runner's universe is not the same. Obviously, we grew up in because we don't have flying cars and all that. But even throughout the 40 years, every bit of Blade Runner storytelling has kept the trajectory of what it was based in. So whatever technology they had and we advanced to, there's no cell phones in Blade Runner. They're still walking up to those booths and then talking to people. And we even though we have this now, we probably have more technology in our cell phones than he had in his spinner. But they kept it consistent because that was where they started, and that's where they figured technology was going to be. So I always thought that was interesting, especially when you see Blade Runner 2049. So I was like I said, I've always been a fan. Some of the things that I wanted to bring up casually is the original. Scott, you told me where you saw the original. Joe, you said Dan, right? I'm sorry, I'm looking at Joe and I'm thinking, I'm sorry, I'm thinking Tiger King. I don't know why.
What's that? Oh yeah, well yeah, Joe Exotic. I chose this name for COVID.
Okay, so now that threw me off. You said you saw it when you were a teenager.
Yes.
Did you see it in 1982?
What's that?
Did you see it in 1982?
No, I saw it in the probably the early 90s.
Oh wow.
So
okay.
Yeah, I'm a little bit younger, I guess, but I loved the movie then, and really the visually stunning movies I really like. So around that time frame, the movie that I fell in love with was Tron, because I was a kid. In '82 I was 6.
Oh, we're
so
roughly the same age. Okay, I'm about a year ahead of you.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that was more the speed of the movie that I was going to at that time. And another thing that was really cool was when I was at UCLA, I got to take classes with Robert Abel, who's the guy that did the special effects for Tron. And he also did the slit scan for 2001, and he did the 1984 Macintosh commercial. So he was in there with all that stuff as it was happening, which is amazing.
I was there with you. I was there with you, man.
Yeah, and one more thing about UCLA.
The commercial you're talking about, you're talking about the commercial, the Ridley Scott commercial that they aired in 1984?
The 1984 Macintosh commercial. Yeah. I think it was shown during the Super Bowl once, where it's a lady that runs into like 1984 and has a sledgehammer that she swings around and throws at the screen and breaks. Yes, that commercial. He did effects for that, which is really cool. So he had his like sizzle reel of what he did in Hollywood, and that was very prominent in it. So I was going to say one more thing.
Go ahead.
One more thing about UCLA. The best class that I took in film was pre-war German film, because it got into the movies like Metropolis, and I love The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. All of the early
that's
German
a great
horror.
movie, dude. That's a great movie.
Yes, and this is just the Blade Runner is a continuation, I think, of the expressionist filmmaking that was started in Germany way back then.
I can see that.
It's really a linear arc, and it's fantastic. Metropolis also, but I look at Blade Runner and I see things like Chinese domination of culture and genetic engineering, all these things that came to pass super strong and are still on the horizon, like the Chinese domination of culture. That's coming. But it's an amazing, look backwards at someone looking forwards.
I want to get into some of the imagery because of the way there are a lot of people that have not seen Blade Runner that have been influenced by Blade Runner without even knowing it. And that is due in very large part to the great Sid Mead. One of the greatest visualist to ever do it. This is his website. I'm going to put his website. For those of you who know who Sid Mead is and have not had a chance to go into depth in some of the Sid Mead lore, I just put his link in there to his website. This guy was thinking 20 to 30 years ahead of the game back then. Even if you look at some of his stuff now, could be applied now, and it would make anything cooler. There are some. They came out with Blade Runner comics. One of the items I was going to bring for my little show and tell part of this. And the coolest thing about the new Blade Runner comics is let me go here. Oops. I knew to do this right. Shut up, Dade. I hear you. I'll just do it right. I don't.
Hey, you do it better than I ever would.
So if you look at these came out, and these are Sid Mead concept sketches that they put onto the variant covers of some of these issues. And these are not things that
looks
made
just
it.
like a cargo bike.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. This really never made it. This is actually a replicant head. It looks like a replicant manufacturing thing. And one of the things that I hope that we get to see in Blade Runner 2099, the show that Amazon is commissioning, is the making of a replicant. I really want to see the process that goes in, because we've heard about it. We just know it's there. The closest we got was in Blade Runner 2049, where Wallace is taking a look at the prototype. But by that time, it's already formed. We think about replicants in the abstract, but we never see the process that goes into the memories. We see the memories that she makes, but we never see it all come together. And that would be a great opening scene for any new Blade Runner movie or show, just showing you the piecing together of these things from concept all the way to. And I think that would be great, and I hope I get a chance to see that. Amazon's shooting a new show. They got a lot of money, so they're not going to cut any costs as far as when it goes to budget goes. So I think we're going to probably see a really good version of Blade Runner, and it's a show. One of the things that I've liked, I burnt out of MCU movies, but I'm not burnt out of their shows, because I think you get more time to tell your story, and you get more time to get used to characters that may have either been thrown away or you just didn't really catch on to for the first 15, 30, 20 minutes of, whatever movie you're watching. But over the course of 8 or 9 episodes, I get to grow with these characters. So I'm looking forward to Blade Runner 2099, me being able to grow with characters in a way that I had never been able to do in a 2-hour movie, and in Blade Runner 2049, 2-hour, almost 3-hour movie. So, Thane, when did you first see Blade Runner, the original?
Well, my dad had seen it when it came out, and my dad introduced me to a lot of science fiction stuff. I saw it probably about 86, I want to say. I was about 11 years old when I saw it first. And I really like the...
Just lied about your age, but I'm okay with that.
Wait a minute. No, sorry, 9. I was 9. Numbers wrong. 75. Yeah, anyway. But no, what I really liked about it was the film noir aspect of it. Like the detective story. And looking at it now, I see how it influenced a lot of stuff that came after it. I mean, like even something as simple as Firefly was influenced by Blade Runner quite a bit. The Asian influence on culture, the technology, and a lot of that. There's a lot of the influence in that.
Yeah,
definitely a much
couple of things I'm
softer
going to
edge
bring
on
up
that
that
show.
really heavily. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that, Joe?
I said it's definitely a much softer edge on that movie, or the show.
Oh, God,
Firefly.
yes. Yeah. Well, I just said that's why I said there were some of the elements there, not all of them. But like, but what I really loved about it is the hard edge, like film noir aspect of it, because I love those old film noir movies. And I do see your point, Joe, about the German expressionism. It really does feel like an extension of German expressionism.
One of the heavier. Go ahead, Joe, real quick.
I was just going to say, I love trying to find lines through film historically, either by characters, the genre, the directors, stories, things like that, and you can find a lot in the evolution of film. So
Yeah.
and this is a high watermark definitely, and it's physical effects rather than CGI and all that stuff. So it's something that's never going to be done again, I don't think.
One of the biggest influence Blade Runner's had, in my opinion, is on anime. Two movies that come to
You're not
mind,
wrong.
immediately are this one I pictured, Ghost in the Shell, and then the next one
Mhm.
I'll picture in Akira. Just looking at some of the stuff, the cityscapes alone are one of the things that I always looked at immediately. And like I said, a lot of people who had seen Ghost in the Shell didn't know of Blade Runner's existence at first, and then went backwards to see the movie, which I think is cool. Another one, like I said, Akira probably more than anything. Some of the stuff that Akira was doing as far as tech goes is right up there with Ghost in the Shell. But there's a ton of animation that I think, as a whole, that was influenced by Blade Runner. There's a lot of anime TV shows that were influenced by Blade Runner later. And then, if you get a chance, how many of you have seen Blade Runner Black Lotus?
I did.
Okay.
I have
I was
not
watching.
gotten a chance to look at it yet, but I'm about to.
Well, it's great now because the entire season's on HBO Max.
Yes.
That's good.
I was the one trying to watch it week to week on the Adult Swim app, and that was
me.
a frustrating experience. And then when they dropped the
Ooh.
whole season on HBO Max, I was like, yes.
Yeah, the Adult Swim, the app. I've heard a lot of complaints about the app. I was fortunate enough to have the time to watch it as it was airing. This show is great, and the people. If you get a chance to, when you go on HBO Max, go to the making of, and go to the people that are making it. They let you know these are career anime producers and career anime makers. They tell you that how much Blade Runner influenced what they do, and that working on this was a closing of the circle for them to be able to work on a finished product of something that influenced them to do a lot of the stuff that they had done. It's a great show. It's not just something that the word Blade Runner slapped on. It's Blade Runner in every way, up to the points where there's aspects. If you pay close attention, there's locations, there's aspects of it. There's of from the original and the upcoming 2049, not including characters that you'll see in the future. Things that happened before 2049. If you also get a chance, watch the 3 featurettes that lead up to Blade Runner 2049: Blackout, Nowhere to Run, and the Wallace. There's one where Wallace introduces the replicants, his new replicants, for the very first time, and how they're obedient. But Blade Runner, this takes place, I think, right in 2019. This place takes place before all that, and it shows you a young Wallace. It shows you the Tyrell Corporation before, right after the fall of the Tyrell Corporation. It tells you a lot about the replicants that both follow what you see in Blade Runner and precede what you see in 2049. Some people had problem with the animation. It is very dark because it takes place in the depths of Los Angeles, so it's supposed to be that way. Jen Henwick, who's in The Matrix and has done a bunch of other stuff, she plays Black Lotus, and it's there's some stories in there that give you points of view from a Blade Runner as well. There's one in particular, like I said, I won't spoil it because I want you guys to enjoy it. But the Bradbury Building's in there, which is cool. They're fans. This was made by fans of the genre and of the IP. Have you had a chance to watch this, Joe?
No, I haven't. But I have a question.
Go ahead.
I do not know enough about Japanese animation, but I have to wonder if it's a chicken or egg, because I thought that tradition was older than Blade Runner.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Yes and no. Okay, so Japanese animation has been around since the late 60s. all the way through Gachi Man. You have all kinds of animation going all the way through, things that
Speed
influence
Racer.
the things that like Voltron, all that. Where the turning point, and this is just subjective, my opinion, where the turning point for me after Blade Runner is the type of anime that you saw, the tone.
Okay.
Prior to the early '80s, you saw stuff like G-Force, Gachi Man, Macross, things like that were technologically based and heavily influenced, but that cyberpunk edge, dark tone that you see in Ghost in the Shell and that you see in movies like Akira, the primary ones I bring to mind, I think that took hold after Blade Runner. And when I see those two, I can see the direct lineage, whereas I can't see that with the previous stuff that had been released before the mid '80s. So a lot of that's my opinion.
There's too many anime creators who, when speaking about their influences, directly credit Blade Runner. It made an impact on an entire generation or more of Japanese anime creators. And so, and it's something that, like, even moving forward to, if anyone had seen that Netflix movie that came out last year, Kate, also has that sort of visual, sort of Blade Runner anime. And when you listen to the director speak on some behind the scene featurettes, once again, anytime you kind of get that cyberpunk neon, what I would almost call neon noir, is Blade Runner was definitely a touchstone in that, almost creating its own subgenre in both noir and science fiction. I mean, the idea of having a science fiction noir pastiche is almost a direct line back to Blade Runner. The idea of combining those seemingly desperate genres into one film. And similar to what Thade was saying, it is one of the elements that has made me love both Blade Runner, the 1982 film, but then also the franchise that has birthed from it, is that noir sci-fi mashup that happens.
And Joe, just to illustrate kind of where I'm coming from, this is a scene from Ghost in the Shell. This is a frame. This is one of my favorite frames. I want to get this like a giant poster somewhere here in the store. And to me, this is the kind of stuff that, I mean, if you look at the branding, the Nike, the everything that they put in there, the influence, the heavy influence of the Asian neon that's in there. To me, this and I've heard this person talk about this, how heavily influenced. But yeah, you are correct. The genre of anime has been around a long time, and I think somewhere there's a documentary that shows the history of animation, and it shows a lot of heavy influence. Blade Runner is just one, because there's a lot of stuff that got Star Trek. Star Trek heavily. I didn't realize this. Star Trek and Star Wars heavily influenced anime are during that era as well. So there's a lot of influence on anime, and it's been around forever. But my biased mind looks at this and says Blade Runner. But everybody will look at animation and see things. And that's why I wanted to have people from all different angles of this, because how I see the world through Blade Runner is not how Scott would see it, or not how Joe would see it, or not how Thade would see it, or not how people in the chat would see it. And I think I spent enough time bouncing my Blade Runner thoughts off my own skull. So yeah, this is that's an interesting aspect of it. So now here comes a question for you guys, and it's a question that I've had for 40 years of my life here. You know, yeah, I'm old, but I'm alive. So when we talk about Deckard, the main protagonist in the movie, in two of the movies, not the main and the second one, is Deckard a replicant, in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
Well,
wow, I thought I was going to get pushback. What about the chat?
Well, no, I mean, one, when the director himself has come out and said he was a replicant, when the director told Harrison Ford, "You are a replicant," and then you've got two major things that really show up in the movie. Of course, after everything after theatrical cut, when they put the unicorn back in, I mean, if that doesn't scream, he's a replicant. But there's also that scene in his apartment where Rachel comes back there and he's standing behind her. And in interviews with Ridley Scott, throughout the film, you see that a replicant's pupils glow when the light catches them, kind of like how a cat does in the night. And if you look over what would be Rachel's left shoulder in one of those apartment scenes, when Deckard's standing behind her, the light reflects off his pupils the same way it reflects off of other replicants in the film. And that was intentionally done by Ridley Scott to be another one of those, he's a replicant.
Yeah, and to me, it sealed the deal when the memory. I mean, because I watched the international cut. I have seen every version of Blade Runner. My least favorite, unfortunately, is the director's cut. I love Ridley Scott, but sometimes they cut stuff that they needed to cut, and he took out the voiceover. To me, the voiceover, without the voiceover, we're not sitting here. I don't become a fan as much as that.
Oh,
movie.
I completely disagree with you entirely.
I'm sorry,
man. So much so that have you ever read Future Noir: The Making of Blade Runner by Paul Salmon?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing. I saw the director's cut, not the final cut. The final cut is my favorite version of the film. The director's cut, which was that home video release that had no input from Ridley Scott whatsoever, I saw it that way. Then when I went back and heard the narration, I hated it, because one, it's just telling me what I'm watching. That's not what good noir narration does. And two, a detail from that Future Noir book that I loved is that Harrison Ford hated the voiceover so much that he intentionally performed it poorly in hopes that the studio would
and it turned out to be classic.
No, it is not classic at all. No.
Alan Ladd, I remember if you watch Dangerous Days, if you watch what comes in the suitcase, he really didn't want to do it. 100% correct. But Alan Ladd, and thank God for Alan Ladd, because he's like, how this movie wasn't going to be easy to swallow as it is. And to him to be able to illustrate that with his voice, and I love the fact that he's being a sarcastic asshole about doing it, because you can hear in Harrison's voices for his voice that he does not want to be doing that. And I actually think that adds to the ambiance of it.
But I think it's poorly written voice. Like, as a fan of noir and really good voiceover dialogue, it is so poorly written, in my opinion, that it detracts from the film for me.
I love it. I mean, especially when he's explaining, because there's a lot of terminology in the movie, like when Bryant was talking with skin jobs, all that terminology. As somebody who's just coming into it, especially younger viewers like me, I wasn't ordinary. I was 7 watching this, so I'm not the norm. But when you're talking about, I've sat next to people that are like, they're looking at me, and I've watched the cut without the narrator, and I've watched it with. I'm like, it's so much. To me, once again, this is why I have a different various people on the panel. I cannot watch the version without it. I can, but I can't watch with other people because I've seen the movie so many times. I could do the voiceover. But I swear, without that version of the movie, I may not have caught on. And I'm not an idiot, but it's just that the way the movie unfolds for me, how he's leading you through the movie, with even regardless of the quality of it, it's just the voiceover it's helping me through that movie at that particular time. Because remember, that concept was so far beyond what other movies were coming out. You weren't seeing movies like that. And so I thought it needed a little bit of a primer. And I love the fact that it seemed like a noir type. I mean, there's a lot of those movies that are poorly done and written with the voiceovers. And I thought that fit the vein of it. I think it's great. And I'm glad Alan Ladd said, yes, you have to have this, because he looked at he was producing the movie, and he's like, dude, this concept is so complex that we're gonna need this. And I'm glad he put it in there. There's a lot of people who don't like it though, dude. It's 50-50. It's 50-50. I mean, 50% of people I think just hate it. Yeah, especially the scene with Rutger Hauer at the end. Dude, it's like 2 different religions. We just split off into like 2 different sects when it comes to when Deckard starts to talk. All I could do is sit there and watch him die. There are people that just like I get out and walk out if I haven't seen that in the thing. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? He's telling you what Rutger Hauer's character can no longer tell you because he's dead. I love the way he explained that, but there are other people who would just throw a shoe at me for saying that. But what do you think, Joe?
For me, I don't mind the narration terribly, but I think it is kind of unnecessary. When I think of all these sci-fi and fantasy movies, it's about getting your imagination involved. So when you ask the question, is he a replicant or not? I think from the context clues in the film, he's obviously some type of a nexus, which is like a biological replicant, and he might have had memory implants, but he's not the type of nexus that has the candle that burns twice as bright and half as long, because obviously the Nexus 6, I believe, are beating him up like crazy. So he's like some type of a prototype. And that's not something that's discussed in the film, but you get that from watching it.
Also, when you see Blade Runner 2049, in my opinion, Deckard is what the finished product of Officer K is. Deckard is a prototype, just like you mentioned, but he was the first in what Officer K will become, to the point where the cops are now, if they're openly Blade Runners, they're not even, whereas when Deckard was created, if he indeed is a replicant, which I truly believe that he is, it would have been a stigma. It would have been one of Tyrell's experiments where he was doing things outside of his mandate because that's who he was. And replicants hunting replicants were probably the best ways to do it. And I truly believe that that's why Deckard was the best. Not all Blade Runners of that era were replicants, but I think he was. I think the clues are there. I've had people say, no, he's not. But like I said, Ridley Scott said so. And that memory with that unicorn from Legend, another Ridley Scott movie, that they add in there, is telling you that, and when Gaff puts that down there, when he puts that unicorn, he's saying, I know what's inside your head because we created you. So, like I said, it's just one of those things, just a small conversation like that can keep Blade Runner going from 1982 to 2022.
Okay, I want to say things. Yay or nay voiceover?
The Deckard voiceovers, I love them.
Yes. Oh wow.
I wasn't expecting that. I was
love
expecting to have to remove Fade from the screen. I had the button ready, but
I love like that voiceover, like in noir movies. I love how you get in the detective's head and it's the voiceovers from the detective's thought process and everything else. They kind of did that with the Batman this year, this last year. Well, this year I think, yeah, this year.
It was this year. It was March. Yes.
Yeah.
And see, and for me personally, the voiceover narration in the Batman that Matt Reeves had, that in my opinion is good narration. There for me, there's good and I do not feel that way because, like you said, there's narration that is characterization, and then there's narration that's exposition. And my problem with the theatrical cut Blade Runner narration is for me, it falls more in the exposition category than it does the characterization. And to William, I understand what William's saying. Remember, you got to remember, I watched the movie for 10 years, never hearing the narration. Wow. So obviously, the movie did its job for me. I didn't need the narration to tell me anything because it was not until that 25th anniversary Voight Comp Collector's Edition came out that had like 5 cuts in it where I finally sat down and watched theatrical international work print, director's cut, and then the final cut. And so I think it's telling that of those 5, only one of those has narration in it. And yes, that
the international cut, which is the 7th version, does the international cut has it all.
It has it all. Okay.
Yeah,
I need to go back and rewatch that. But I just, like I said, I think it's interesting that they brings up the Batman because for me, when I heard the narration, I kind of like clinched up a little bit because I was like, okay, how's this going to go? And then it was like, oh no, that's how you do narration. I like that. So
see, well, the Batman had a different purpose. The Batman was a mood building, rolling intimidation, whereas the one for Blade Runner was more of okay, just so that you understand what he just said, that stuff he was talking.
see, and that very reason is why I don't like it. I can watch the blasted movie. I can figure this out on my own. Thank you very much. You don't have to talk to me like I'm 5.
See, I was 2 years from being 5. I was 7. I guess it's the point of where you're coming into the movie, because, like I said, had I not had that with me, I might have just said, you know what, Dad, why'd you take me to this? Let's go to CET again, or whatever was released at that time. But because I was able to it's like I was having a conversation with Deckard, and he was leading me along. Oh, by the way, this is so. I guess, but from your point of view, I can understand, because at this point, your movie making skills are a little bit more developed than my 7.5-year-old ones, I guess, or some people in general that want to have it explained to them. Speaking of the versions of Blade Runner, I have this. I don't have this here, because every time I brought one into the store, it's been sold, and I just want to keep one. This is the one that came with the hologram. It came with the mini spinner. It came with, I think, seven different versions of it.
5.
It
came with 5 different versions.
5?
It's 5
Okay,
because it's theatrical, international, work print, director's cut, and then because this came out because the final cut was being released. You know, the one where Ridley Scott finally went back and got to do what he wanted to do, you know, and yeah, so it was 5 that were included, because then you could also purchase just the movies themselves without the fancy case and all the memorabilia, because it also came with an origami unicorn.
I had it. It came with the spinner, the origami uniform. It had a glass brick with a movie still in it. It came with let's see, I thought there were. Okay, so the work print version was in there. I remember that. There's a work print version in there. The final cut is in there. The international cut is in there. The director's cut is in there. The broadcast version is there. Okay, the final cut is my least favorite.
Ah, man, no, it's the one for me, because it's like it's the one where it feels polished, and it feels like, yes, Ridley finally got to do what he wanted to do, especially after reading Future Noir and just hearing about all the struggles he went through.
I'm sorry,
to make that movie.
The director's cut is my least favorite. Final cut actually has everything in it that I wanted, but the final cut does not have the voiceover. The international cut does. So the director's cut is the one I don't like. But then again, when it comes to Ridley Scott, I don't like his director's cuts, and he's one of my favorite director guys.
Well, but you got to remember, the director's cut wasn't him. Like, that was just a home marketing label. That was a home marketing label. He had nothing. He had no input. That's why the final cut happened, was because he looked at this director's cut, air quotes, that got released, and he was like, but that was literally the home video people doing that. That had nothing to do with Ridley himself.
Making money from a movie that bombed. I just love the fact that this movie crashed, but it just made so much money for them over the course of the last 40 years. It's just like, wow, you know. So yeah, I have all of these versions.
What'd you say?
Go ahead.
I said it's an important movie. It's an important movie. But you know, I have maybe a slightly unpopular opinion that the editors are actually very good at their job, and they get paid well because of that. And sometimes taking the actual, you know, the film out of the director's hands can result in something that's better than what the director would actually give you. It's not always the case, but sometimes it is.
Yeah, me and Scott know one in particular that kind of brought us together, but that's not the stream. With the whole Justice League thing. Now, let me go ahead and get with some of the chat, because I completely ignored my chat. I'm sorry, guys. I've only been in this YouTube thing a couple months, so I'm surprised I haven't ended the broadcast. I always have a nightmare that I have everything and everything's going okay, and I push the wrong button and it ends the broadcast. And I'm like, so be thankful I'm not. Hey, Triton K175. I think that is referring to something else.
That's referring to something else. It's referring to something with Enosh. Let's see.
All right. Okay. How you doing? Let's see. That's you. Let's see, Cylon Scotty is come and gone. Yeah, so many versions, and I implore people to watch them all just to pick your own. Don't listen to me. I am 100%
Definitely don't listen to him. Don't listen
biased.
to a word he says.
Yeah. If all I do is get you introduced to some of these versions and you make your own decision, that's perfectly fine with me. See, a lot of people. This is the final cut is a lot of people's favorite. Mine, like I said, I go one beyond. The only different thing that doesn't make the final cut my favorite is the voiceover. Brazil is great. We could do a whole stream on some of these movies that just people didn't understand when they came out, because Brazil was another movie that was like, I remember critics were just tearing it up for a while, if I remember correctly, but that was 1985. What about Birds of Prey? They used Los Angeles for Gotham. Okay, haha. Yeah, everybody has read books of censors. Yeah, but okay, so when it comes to adaptations and things like that, for every book that is turned into one, a quarter of the audience knows that books exist. I understand what he's saying, but it's just like I said, I run into people now that don't know the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep or it was a book. I run into people who I pack into here, tens at a time, hundreds, watching Game of Thrones that had no idea Game of Thrones was novels and wondering, how do I know what's going to happen when the Mountain versus the Viper? How did I know it was going to end that way? Oh, well, it was in the fourth novel, dude. And now, once they started going beyond the novels, because George R.R. Martin's taken a while, then it became something off script. But a lot of the stuff that is adapted from books, nobody knows that the books exist. I mean, and people who read a lot, I mean, Stephen King, I have Stephen King novels sitting on the shelf. People have seen the movie and that's a book. They made a book out of that movie. No, the book. Okay, here's a book. So it's different. Not everybody, especially as a kid, I read a lot of books. We used to have to do book reports, and we used to. I did one on this very novel, and it was kick ass. So I see another old joke for me. Hi, how you doing? Okay.
Hey, I'm the youngest guy here. I don't know what he's talking about.
No, it's an ongoing theme on Poindexter Lounge, because Enosh is always calling me old guy, even though Enosh is like less than 18 months younger than me. So Blade Runner was Japanese domination, not Chinese. It was a little bit of both, if I recall. It was if you look at some of the stuff that's in there, there was a lot of Chinese influence, and what they were trying to in 1982. They were trying to push across the fact, because remember, there was a lot of fear. There was two things we feared in 1982, all the way up to 1980: the Cold War and losing jobs to Asia, manufacturing jobs. All your video game stuff was coming from Asia and all that. And so what they were trying to push was the overall Asian influence on our industrial machine. And that's why it's so, even Blade Runner 2049 is so heavily influenced. I mean, even though that is not as much the case, LA never turned into that. That was where the trajectory of their story was going, so they kept it there. So I guess you can make an Asian influence in general, and that's why when Gaff is actually talking in different Asian dialects, he says. He's like, that gibberish he was talking, it wasn't a real language. It was a combination of English and a couple of other Asian languages. I thought that was interesting that they went into that kind of detail. All right, so let's see. I just want to make sure. All right, cool. So Peter Roberts Defender. Hey, Dave, I put Blade Runner 2049 on the number 3 best sequel films of all time. Yes, I put it up there with Superman 2 and Empire Strikes Back. It is in that, and the bias for me puts it at number 1 because
Aliens.
Yeah. So yeah, it would be, if there was a Mount Rushmore, you'd start getting them.
I would say Star Trek 2 was very good for a sequel.
Another 1982 movie.
Now, I did want to bring up a connection. In the director's cut of Aliens, when they're going through the files, when she's at her hearing, when they showed Captain Dallas's file up on the screen, if you zoom into it, it says he worked for the Tyrell Corporation.
I would not doubt that at all.
And that somewhat tells me that these two universes are connected somewhat, I guess.
I hope not. I could see where you're going. I hope not. I just don't.
Or do you think maybe that was just an Easter egg or something like that?
That was an Easter egg.
Because there's a brotherhood of us that really enjoy this lineage of movies when it comes to Alien and anything that comes from it. And these guys know we're out there. We're like monks.
Well, it's
You know,
also
we're-
James Cameron directing Aliens, giving a nod to the fact that Ridley Scott directed Alien, and I feel like it was kind of like James Cameron going, I see you, Ridley. It's okay.
I got you, man. I got you.
I got you.
We're talking about one of the Aliens is one of the greats. I saw that in the movies in 1986, and that's
Has
how
anybody
you
ever seen the director's cut of Aliens, like with all of the extra scenes and stuff?
The special
I have it up
edition.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Kick-ass
love that
cover,
movie.
The packaging is the best thing about it. So yeah, this was dude, the 80s, man. Not just 1982. Just the way science fiction has changed since then, because a lot of the I love CGI, and there's some things you would not be able to do without it. But all this stuff that we're talking about, most of the movies I brought up on that list, for the most part, were, except for some of Wrath of Khan, were all practical effects. The Thing was air bladders and all that stuff. And we're going to do a stream on The Thing too, and that's one of the things I'm going to hint at later on tonight on our other show. I got to dive into The Thing, because that's one of the coolest thing about John Carpenter's Thing is bringing brand new people who have never seen it into the blood scene when he's doing the blood test, watching people jump for the very first time. And I'm running out of people to show this to for the very, and they're showing it in theaters now because of its 40th anniversary release. But the sheer terror that John Carpenter can do, nobody does terror like him. You may have an opinion about if people can do it better or at a different level, but nobody does it like him. Before Halloween Kills came out, which is absolute trash of a movie, but the previous one that he did, the 2018 version, not a huge budget movie, not a huge anything movie, but the cinematography, just the cinematography in these movies alone, just that is an art that I think people don't even know what a cinematographer is sometimes. We do, but just the filming. And then Blade Runne 2049, which I'm about to jump into, they finally won one of their first Academy Awards that the franchise ever won for Roger Deakins' Academy his cinematography, and they probably should have won for the 1982 film. I don't see how it didn't happen, but let's go on to what I consider to be the other half of the greatest science fiction achievement of all time, and that's Blade Runner 2049. Now, when I saw this movie, I did not give an immediate review, because as somebody who carried Blade Runner with me for 35 years before this one was actually released, I did not want to become a prisoner of the moment. I did not want to just jump out of theater and say this. I needed to sit. I sat for 3 days and let this movie bleed in before I came to my conclusion that Blade Runner 2049 is a better film than the original. And that is not a knock on I am a card-carrying disciple of the 1982 film, and that's actually a compliment. This movie completes a circle like no other sequel I've ever seen. It goes places that the original could not go for a lot of different reasons, not any fault of its own. It goes into depth with its characters that the first movie cannot do. And if you look at it, what went into making the Blade Runner movie, the fact that it was even made in 1982 is a miracle. So you didn't have to deal with a lot of that. The sound score, all due respect to Vangelis, but Hans Zimmer's sound score in here, most notably, there's a track on there, Seawall, which I bought. I don't buy soundtracks. I figure I got YouTube, I got all these things. I don't buy soundtracks. I bought the soundtrack after hearing Seawall. It is, I can no longer think of Blade Runner without thinking of this as an equal half of it. I'm going to start off with Scott. What did you think of 2049?
Oh, because I'm going to have to go because I got some kids running around the
Okay.
house. But I'm going to throw the match on the gasoline as I walk out the door and say that I agree with you that I find 2049 to be a better overall film than the original. So with that mic drop, I'm going to say good day to all of you, sirs, and you have
all right. Thanks for coming on, Scott.
Bye.
Yeah, nice chatting with you.
Okay, Joe, what did you think of 2049? If you've seen it, correct?
So, I'm kind of like you, except more extreme. I actually have not seen this yet because I'm so in love with the original. I didn't want to ruin my impression of it. So, I guess with your praise, I should make it a point to go and seek this one out and take a look.
You are going to look at the original in a much more favorable light, even more favorable than I didn't think it could get more favorable for me. But this movie, 2049, augments the original. It surrounds it. It is, you feel the other part of the story being told, and especially the the depth that they're allowed to go in. I'm going to give you a prime example for the difference between a Voight comp test and there's something in here called a baseline. The Voight test was used to find replicants and obviously the tests and everything because they were hidden. And here, replicants operate out in the open. Obviously, Ryan Gosling character is a replicant. He's openly replicant. He's employed by the LAPD. There's what's called a baseline test because every time he goes out and makes a kill or does anything, they want to make sure that his consciousness has not drifted off of what his original programming is. And if it does, they retire them because they figure they're starting to develop uncontrolled emotions as opposed to what their directive is. They're given the memories. They're given they know their memories are fake. And in the baseline test, once you see that, you'll understand that we're taking what we've known for all these years up to a far more intense level. And it's just a couple minutes. He does it twice in the movie, but the very initial time that he does it, you understand the significant differences from 2049 to 1982, and it's stunning. Harrison Ford's in it, obviously. He's not the hugest part in it, but it's really, it just reinforces how awful humans are. Replicants are the subject, but be honest with you, just as the same in 1982's version, the humans are the most awful things in the movie. How they've gone to treat people, and the humans are no longer even looking to be human. It's the replicants that are trying to figure out what it is to be human. And there's other characters involved. Anna de Mara's character, she plays a holographic character. His sidekick, sort of, her evolution is great in it. Robin Buttercup from I can't remember her name right now, even though Robin Wright plays a cop in here, showing you just how awful humans still are, how much of they're just property. The replicants are property just for use. There's pleasure models in there. It's just a really good, and like I said, the sound score. Unlike the biggest difference between 1982 and 2049, the sound score is there. The sound score you have a good sound score when it overwhelms you. And there are scenes where you are meant to be brought to the edge of escalation, and Hans Zimmer does that. There's a scene in particular where Seawall is played, where it's a fight scene, and when I saw it in the theater, the way they did it is it went louder and louder and louder to the point where you were just almost overtaken by it. That's how good the sound score is. I usually give movies up to a 5. A 5 frap meter is what I used to give them. I gave this one a 6. This movie is that good. And it took me a while to make sure that I just wasn't coming off the glow of just walking out of the theater. So please go see it. And anybody out there who's watching this that has not seen Blade Runne 20, it's on HBO Max now. It's a long movie. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes. But I did not leave that theater thinking, wow, I'm so beat. I'm tired. Oh, no, I wanted more. I sat through the end credits of a movie that I only do through comic book movies now because you do the end credit scenes and all that. I didn't think there was going to be an end credit scene for Blade Runne 2049. I wanted to experience as much of it as possible until they turned the lights on and threw me out. Because I saw it the night it was released. So I saw it at 10 p.m. You can get out like 12:45. We're walking out of there, and theater staff wants to go. And I'm sitting there with my buddy. We sat in that theater just trying to comprehend, was it as good as I just thought it was? And then that feeling stuck. So Blade Runner 2049, like I said, I am not just it's not just me talking. Tint shell, the bus gel poster, I got him hanging up here. I have the physical media. I don't buy physical media anymore. I bought that. The day it came out. It ended up selling 22. It ended up selling 22 million, and DVD, Blu-ray media sales. And like I said, in an era where physical media is going away, that's good. So, Thade, did you see 2049?
Yes, I did.
What'd you think?
I loved it. It's one of the, like I said earlier, it's one of the best sequels ever.
Okay, that's right.
Uh, yeah, it's a great movie. I need to rewatch it again because I haven't watched it in a year or two. But
Once a month.
it's an amazing movie. I mean, it complements the original, in my opinion.
Hi, Bell Rev. I
What's
agree.
up, Bill?
I agree with this. And like I said, Shape of Water was very good that year. Shape of Water. I thought that the lead actress and I thought the supporting actress should have won the Academy Award for that. But
Oh yeah,
you
that
know
was a
what?
good movie too.
Yeah, it was a very weird movie, but I love those kind of movies. 2049 for me, hearing the words the Academy Award goes to Blade Runner for anything. For anything. This movie lost them money, but we promoted this movie with Warner Brothers. It's one of the first movies I promoted with one of the main guys that we promote with now. And I begged to be on the promotion for this movie just because I wanted to be a part of the religion again. And even though it did not make them a lot of money at the time, they were very happy with those 2 Academy Awards. When they released the physical media and all that stuff, they put that on top of there. He had been nominated 14 times before he won. He won another one recently, but he'd done all kinds of work and had never been, never won. And which for him to win his very first one on what I consider to be his best work, it was just. It was just stunning. I said just to hear it. I mean, I would have loved to hear Ridley Scott's name. I mentioned one time as an Academy Award winner. He got ripped off for Gladiator and a whole bunch of other movies. But I think Ridley Scott, with movies like this, Alien, has transcended beyond just the Academy Award. I think guys like this, Harrison Ford, who hasn't won one, are bigger than the Academy as far as stature goes. I mean, those guys are, you mentioned their line of work. It's just bigger than. There's been 80, 90, whatever, how many Academy Award Best Actor winners and all that, but a lot of them you can't even remember. But you'll remember Blade Runner. You'll remember Alien. You'll remember you remember all these movies that they touched on. So that's where his legacy is. I would have liked to see a lot more accolades. I'd like to see a lot more people see it in 1982 and Blade Runner 2049 and 2017. Yeah, but you know what? It's out there now. It's out there. There's a lot of people that are watching this movie on HBO Max. Both they have the director's cut on a final cut on HBO Max. You can literally watch them back to back if you want to. So nobody remembers this movie bombing. To be honest with you, a lot of people weren't even alive that are seeing it now. So, but its legacy is the fact that we're here 40 years later talking about these movies when a lot of the list that me and Scott went over with IMDb, outside of the first maybe 15 movies that were released that year, there's like 60 some odd 70 movies that were released that year. Most of them you're not talking about. You know what? So we're talking about Blade Runner. We're talking about movies like Wrath of Khan, Poltergeist. Those are the handful of movies that I'm glad people took risk on making movies that was a good chance that they weren't going to make a lot of money. I'm glad that that the Blade Runner franchise has continued beyond 2049. We have Black Lotus. We have these comic books. We have the toys. We have an Amazon series that is a direct extension from going into 2099. If these guys would have just made a dollar decision, we may not even have that. So thank goodness for risk takers. So what are we disagreeing? Oh, and you know what? Yeah, like I said, 50% of everybody that will watch it. I'll tell you what. As long as you're watching Blade Runner, we're on the same side. Because, like I said, I don't think enough people in this world have seen this movie. You know, I'm not saying seen it 1,000 times like me, but just see it. See one of these two movies, and then go out and look at the world around you. It's different. I mean, it was different for me. So I think I've covered everything. Thade, you got any last words?
Nah, just that these are both amazing movies. I look forward to the Amazon series coming, and I also look forward to actually getting into Black Lotus.
Yes, please. Yes. Oh, yes. Mackenzie Davis does give a very underrated performance. She's very important in this movie, and she does a great job. Joe, last moment.
I have one thing. The thing I do remember about 2049 was that the critical response was pretty mixed when it came out, and that's one of the bigger reasons why I didn't go to see it. So, I guess that just shows you how bad the movie reviewers are out there.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to get some accurate ones, I mean, as accurate as a movie, because it's all subjective opinion, go to the Wikipedia page for Blade Runner 2049, and you'll see the ones that were up there. And some of those, and the reason why I say go to those, some of those were critics of the movie even being made. There are so many people that hold the original in such high regard that a part of them didn't want this movie to be made. And even I was apprehensive. I'm like, it's been 35 years. Will they be able to do this? And they did it. They stuck the landing. And these critics that I'm recommending to you on the 2049, the Wikipedia page, the Rolling Stones, all that, these were critics of the movie even being made, and they gave it glowing reviews. And so yeah, it's see it on the biggest screen you can, if you can. I mean, the biggest one in your house. You got a projection screen, and make sure you got the best sound. Make sure you got the best sound going. If the best sound you can possibly put into it, because you need to be taken over by everything that this movie has to offer. So that's my recommendation.
Well, I think I'm going to have to look for a theater that's going to do another screening. And I assume that they're going to start doing that with the 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
They'll probably do like double features and things like that.
Yeah, that would be
the big screen experience is definitely something that's harder to find these days. And I do appreciate it, because that's how I saw movies when I was a kid.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you all for joining my casual conversation of what is my favorite science fiction motion picture accomplishment of all time. That's it. I mean, like I said, I don't think I can express it anymore. So happy 40th anniversary to Blade Runner. And thank you. And thanks for Scott McClellan for stopping by. And that's a wrap, guys.
Let's talk about Brazil sometime.